Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Hi, hello-y, my name is Loey. And I have a video for you guys that's sort of a sequel to a video I did a few months ago, which I was pleasantly surprised to see how much you all enjoyed. That video was on stories, specifically paranormal stories, coming out of the Audacity Stitch trend. If you're unfamiliar with this, essentially a creator named Audacitii came online and said,
"Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first."
And TikTok did what TikTok does, and it responded with scary stories. Today I have 6 of them to share with you all. Everything from haunted dolls to mimics and so much more. These are the 6 scary videos that I found out of this trend that genuinely terrified me. And trust me when I tell you, I've watched like every single one of these videos. Thank you as always for tagging me in your scary finds. If you ever want to participate in these videos, follow me over at LoeyBugXO on TikTok and give me a tag in your favorite scary videos. Something that I really enjoy doing when I travel is taking a little bit of time before my trip to learn a couple of key phrases and conversation starters in whatever language is native to where I'm traveling to. And using today's sponsor Babbel, I am currently learning German for an upcoming trip planned to Berlin. Babbel was actually founded in 2007 in Berlin, Germany. It was the world's first language learning app and also is the best selling. One of my favorite features of the Babbel app is the everyday conversations feature, in which you can listen in on or participate in various conversations in the language of your choosing. It's really, really helpful. If you've been reading my YouTube comments recently, I've been trying to respond to some of my German viewers in German, and that's what Babbel is all about, is connecting people through language. With Babbel, you can start speaking a language in just 3 weeks, and their courses are developed using 650 plus language experts. So you know that what you're learning is correct. I can introduce myself in German to you, ich bin LoeyLane, or if I was your teacher, it would be ich bin Frau Lane. Get 60% off of your subscription to Babbel when you use my link. I will have it in the description box down below. Let me know what language you would learn and why. I'm really curious to know. Thanks to Babbel for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into the scary videos. Our first video comes from Megan, aka Megs_zone on TikTok. For Megan, she has a number of scary stories that come out of her childhood home. One she believes is haunted. Now, Megan's family, for a period of time, hosted Korean exchange students in their home. They were like a host family. And for Megan, she's really used to just sharing her space. In fact, one of their Korean exchange students even lived in her room with her. They even shared a bunk bed together, like one of them on the top bunk, one of them on bottom. So Megan has just been really used to sharing a space. However, in this family home, the carpet was being replaced. And so her father ended up taking off every single door in the house, I guess just to make that easier. When I first was listening to it, I was like, do you really have to do that? And then I realized, yeah, the door can't just be in the way while you're trying to carpet. So anyways, Megan is like, I just need like more privacy than this. You know, she seems to be quite used to sharing a space and all of that, but not to have a door at all. It's like she really wanted more privacy. And so her grandmother for Christmas got her one of those privacy bead curtains. Do you know the ones I'm talking about? The problem with these privacy beads in particular were that they didn't fully reach the floor. There was like a small gap between the floor and where the privacy beads ended. And that little gap is where the absolute horror of this video begins.
And my sister Callie would always come in and just steal my clothes, my makeup, whatever she wanted to use. And I was a pretty light sleeper, so she would slide under the door beads to come in the morning before school and to not wake me up. There was one particular night where my exchange student was visiting her uncle in another state for Thanksgiving, so I was alone in my room. It was nighttime, everybody was in bed, and it was dark, and I heard my door beads. So I looked over and I see what looks like my sister, just like her silhouette, and she's got long, curly hair, and she was crawling on all fours with her hair, and her hair was like hanging in front of her face, and she was crawling on all fours sliding under the door beads, and I could see the door beads like hitting against her back as she slid under. And once she got under, she like hurried to the end of my bed where the closet was at the foot of my bed. So I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I caught her in the act this time. I'm going to totally tell her that I knew she was stealing my clothes. So I snuck to the edge, to the end of the bunk bed. And I just like, wow, like tried to scare her. And when I looked over the end of my bed, there was nobody there. So I just started screaming, and then my sister ended up running down the hall, and she came in and turned on my light, and she's like, what? And I was just like, and I just freaked out and told her what had happened. But that was one time that was super, super creepy.
Yeah, she sees her sister crawling, seemingly with her hair over her face like she's Samara from The Ring. We actually have another like story where some kind of entity mimicked someone's loved one. And I don't know, like this kind of stuff, that's the stuff that really freaks me out, because you guys know I've talked about it kind of at length. My family had a mimic experience with what I guess I call was a mimic, but it was just some kind of entity in a house that is now mine, where my brother and my dad would like see each other, but it wasn't them. They'd never see like the front of each other's faces. They'd see each other out of the corner of their eye, walking away, stuff like that. But if I like, imagine seeing your sibling crawl under your door on all fours. You're like, oh my God, they're playing a weird, creepy little prank. They're just not there. That video truly terrified me. However, Megan does have other paranormal stories under this trend, so make sure to check out her account to hear the rest of those. As always, I will have everybody that I talk about today listed out down below. A lot of these creators did multiple videos for this trend, so yeah, check them out. Our next video comes from TikTok user kayla.gow. Kayla explains that if you knew her family history, you would know that her mother's family has been struck with just a lot of tragedy. Her mother lost both of her brothers at the age of 38, really unexpectedly. They just got sick one day, and it happened very quickly. Her mother also lost both of her parents in her 50s, just a ton of loss in this family. As a result of this, Kayla says that their family plot, like their family graveyard, grew quite quickly. There was a lot of people to visit, a lot of people who were very loved by her mother and by their family. Her mother also has surviving sisters. That's the family that she has. So one day her mother says that she and her sisters are going to go to the family graveyard plot, and they are going to go like make arrangements basically for all of their loved ones, their brothers, their parents. And they're just gonna, you know, go spend this time together, all of them. And so Kayla decides to go because some of her cousins are also going that she hasn't seen in a really long time. But something she highlights in the beginning of this story is that when it comes to this cemetery, there is no cell service. We're not talking about like a weak signal, a bad signal. There is no cell phone service in this graveyard. In fact, nothing around except for maybe an old church and a ton of farmland. They're on the way to the cemetery, and one of Kayla's cousins is playing around with a digital camera that she has. This is like, I think she said 2013, maybe 2014. So digital cameras just were a cool thing to have. And so they're playing with this digital camera on the drive down to the cemetery. And it's like the minute that they hit the cemetery line, the camera just stops working. It had a full battery and now it just won't turn on at all. So that's like the first weird thing that happens. The scariest thing seems to be that one of Kayla's cousins cannot find her cell phone. She thinks her young son had it last. He's like a 7-year-old kid. He's like, I don't have it. I don't know where your phone is. Well, she had it when they arrived, so the cell phone has to be somewhere. The entire family is looking around the graveyard, in the cars, just everywhere they can for this cell phone. And that's when something really bizarre happens.
And there's no cell phone service, so nobody can call it and figure out where it is, right? So there's a fence that separates where you park your car and where the cemetery begins. Our family plots are right on the fence line, or at least very close to it. We're all inside this fence. Nobody has been outside of this fence. And I know this because I'm always the observer. I'm always watching people and seeing what they're doing. While my mom and her sisters are over there fiddling with flower arrangements, my cousin and I are kind of sitting on the gravestone, and I'm watching my cousins to see what they're doing. Nobody walks outside of that fence. I'm telling you, there's no way. No one can find this phone. And all of a sudden, my mom's oldest sister, her phone starts making the weirdest noise. It was the weirdest beeping sound. It was not a sound that was programmed into the phone. It was not a downloaded sound. I don't know how to describe it other than it just wasn't her ringtone. She honestly didn't even know it was her phone at first because of how weird the sound was. When she held up her phone, there was 2 really alarming things that I noticed. First, the phone should not have been ringing. Even though it was showing that someone was calling, there was no service in the corner. Didn't make any sense. The second thing that surprised us all is we're standing in a circle watching this phone ring. There's no one else out there. And the phone that is calling hers is the phone that is missing. And this is the first point in the trip I start to feel really uneasy. Like, I'm trying to leave at this point. I'm like, Mom, like, I don't feel good about being here. Like, I really just want to go. But nobody else seems to be listening to me. And in the midst of them not listening to me, what does my aunt do? She answers the phone. It's not a person on the other end of it. It is like this crackling sound, like someone like popping some like rocks or rolling rocks with their hand. And my mom and her sisters start crying and they're saying like, this is our dad calling us. This is our dad. And I'm looking around and I'm like, is nobody else scared? At this point, I'm ready to walk out of this place and just leave. Like, I literally head to the car. And as I'm walking out of this car, there's like this little covered pavilion that's like kind of by the entrance of the cemetery on the other side of the fence where the cars are parked. And sitting on that pavilion is my cousin's phone, face down, locked. Nobody was out there to have called from that phone to my aunt's number. When my cousin unlocks that phone, there is no record of a phone call. There's nothing on it. It says no service. No phone call has been made. How is that possible? I don't know.
I think personally, like, I think that when it comes to people feeling like something is a sign from their loved ones, I'm never going to be anybody ever to tell you that a sign you believe from a loved one is fake just because it seems different to me. Because I feel like if I said some of the signs that I feel my dad has left for me, people would be like, well, I mean, that's just like a thing that could happen. And I know how discouraging that would feel. So I'm definitely not saying it's not that, but I also believe that when you get like a gut feeling of being terrified, of being unsettled, of feeling like something is just wrong, I don't think that's ever a loved one. I don't think our loved ones scare us. But that's my opinion on that. And clearly I have 2 very differing opinions that clash with each other in this case. But I do think it's just fascinating. And the entire time that I was watching this, I was thinking about, I was gonna say my childhood cemetery, which sounds crazy, but I grew up across the street from this really old cemetery. And I used to just walk like through the cemetery all the time, like visiting graves, like talking to people who died in like the 1800s. It's really no wonder that I turned out the way I did and why I have the job that I do. When I spent my youth walking across the street to a cemetery in the middle of summer to talk to someone's dead great-great-grandmother. Anyways, if you're thinking about the camera, by the way, that camera that we talked about in the beginning that randomly stopped working, oh, there's a resolution to that, and it's pretty freaking creepy.
I climb back in my aunt's Camry and we're driving down the road leaving at this point. They've had their waterworks show. I'm pretty shook. Like, I'm not feeling too good. And my cousin's over there still fiddling with her camera. As we get down the road, she's like, I still don't understand why this camera doesn't work. She goes to turn it on and it says full battery.
Kayla says that she's known occasionally as an overreactor and asks us what we would do in her place. But I really think, like, I don't think it's overreacting. I think that if you have a gut feeling, a gut fear, that's trying to tell you something. So yeah, not overreacting in my opinion. But I thought that story was really, really weird. Next up, we're taking a look at a video from TikTok user vinibyte. Now, this poster, Vivian, when she's a child, her father was in the military and he was overseas for a period of time. And when he comes back from that tour, Vivian is so excited to see him. She's just missed him so much that she's like, it gets to the nighttime and she's like, well, I want to sleep in bed with you, which her dad, of course, says yes to. It's the middle of the night. Her dad is fast asleep beside her in bed. She starts to hear something outside of the bedroom.
So I slept in his bed and his door was open, and I was up that night late reading with a flashlight because I was like, oh, I'm gonna blow his socks off reading this book to him. And that night I heard footsteps coming up the stairs, and it was like keys jangling, and so I like go under the covers, have the covers up to here, and in the doorway I see an apparition of my father. My dad is laying next to me, but I see my dad as plain as day. Oh, it makes me sick just thinking about it. He is like a little bit transparent, like I can kind of see through him, but it's my father. It's 2000s, glasses on the back of the head, spiked cargo shorts with the keys on the carabiner. Like, it was exactly my dad. Then he starts going, come here, Vivian. It's my name. Come here, Vivian. And I was like, no way. And I put my covers over my head, and when I looked back out, he was gone.
That sounds like one of those 2-sentence horror stories, like the one where the mother is calling for a kid and the kid goes downstairs towards the sound of their mom's voice and their mom pulls them into the closet and says, "Don't go, I heard it too." Like one of those stories that sounds so terrifying, it can't possibly be real. And yet I truly think it is. Like I fully believe the story, because you know what I say, you believe kids, you believe pets when they have a paranormal experience. We have more stories with kids like later in this video who had paranormal experiences. And I just always feel like kids know, pets know. I feel like adults, we have this almost guard up where it's like, we'll explain away a paranormal event. You know what I mean? A kid doesn't know how to do that. Like a kid isn't going to be rational. You know, they're just going to tell you what they saw. And this, seeing this, having your family member in bed beside you and seeing them in the doorway while they motion for you to come here, like, oh my God, terrifying. Vivian does tell a second story in this video. And this one comes from when she was just a bitty baby. She doesn't remember this, but it's been told to her by her family. One night she starts crying in her nursery, and so her father gets up and he goes to her room to go and check on her. However, he gets to this room and there's no baby.
Crib empty. No baby. He starts freaking out, obviously. And he's searching around the house, following my cry. I'm downstairs, 3 stories down, on top of the pool table. I'm sat on the pool table, like holding a pool ball, crying. I'm telling you, I was probably like 14 months, 15 months. You cannot get out of your crib. Nor could I walk down all those stairs and then get on top of a pool table. In that house, me and my sisters, we were on top of the stairs. They're a lot older than me, and they know this story. We were on top of the stairs, and we were looking down into the darkness. Nobody else was home. And we were just like playing with a bouncy ball, like throwing shit down there. You know how kids are stupid. And we threw a bottle cap down there, and it threw back at us. Like,
this is not a case of a kid like crawling out of their crib. She literally somehow made it all the way down the stairs and was sitting on the pool table. Even if she could have done that, how did she get on the pool table? You know what I mean? I feel like the first time I listened to it, I was like, well, maybe it's not necessarily a bad spirit, like maybe it's a playful one. And then I remembered what happened with her dad, where she saw him in the doorway, like beckoning her to come closer. And suddenly I was like, oh, never mind. This is not a good thing. This is a thing that very clearly it's taking her downstairs and putting her on a pool table. It's disguising itself as her father and telling her to come here in the middle of the night. I don't know. Her videos are so scary. And again, she's one of those creators who has multiple scary videos on her account. So go and check her out. Really quickly, you guys, this is not my first time filming this video. I filmed it the other night, and the part that you just watched actually got corrupted. So I had to refilm this, and I'm about to play you the rest of this video. I'm in like the same outfit and everything, just in case, I don't know, I look a little different. Then from TikTok user, it's just me, Kayla G. We have a haunted doll story, possibly. It's a little complicated, and we'll get into it. The way that Kayla starts this story just put such like a pit of unease in my stomach.
I debated for a long time on if I even wanted to tell this story because, quite frankly, every time I tell it,
just creeps me out all over again. So I kind of try to just not think about it. But a few years ago, our family experienced one of the scariest things I've ever experienced in my nearly 37 years of life.
Like, I heard that, and there was just something about the way she said it, that it's the scariest thing that's ever happened in her 37 years of life. I don't know, it hooked me, and it's for a good reason, because this story is crazy. This is a couple of years ago. It takes place in 2020, and Kayla at this time has 2 children. Her older of her 2 children at this point is sleeping really, really soundly through the night. Self-soothes, just kind of like puts himself down in bed and is out like a light. And it's around the time that Kayla comes into possession of a doll that is kind of just passed down in her family, seemingly as an heirloom. It originally belonged to like a great-great-grandmother, and now it's just gone through cycles of various women in her family. And she specifically says that like people in her family think this doll is haunted. So it's around the time that the doll comes into her possession, and around the time that her son interacts with the doll, that his sleeping patterns begin to change. One night, he wakes up literally screaming from a nightmare, like a nightmare that scares him so badly, he wakes up his parents screaming. So Kayla is like, I'll go lay with him. She goes to his room, she lays down with him, and he's clearly unsettled about something. But specifically, she says that he keeps looking at something over her shoulder.
So I go to him, I lay down with him in his room, and I'm like, it's okay, buddy, you know, I'm here, I'm gonna lay with you, I'll be with you tonight, you don't have to be scared. And the whole time I'm laying with him, trying to get him to go back to sleep, he is like staring over my shoulder off into the corner of his room. And I go to turn my head to see what he's staring at, and he stops my face with his hands. He's like, no, mommy, don't look at him. He's really scary. So I'm like, all right, let's go lay down in my bed. So I carry him and all of his things. We go lay down in my bed. And he's still just not very settled, still seems really shaken up. I'm like, buddy, you're in mommy and daddy's bed. You're safe now. It's fine. Let's go back to sleep. He's like, I know, but now he's staring at me from over there, a corner in my room. And this is just the beginning of a situation that went on for nearly a year.
After this point, every single night, her son is having nightmares. It is like impossible to get him to sleep in his room alone. It's more than that. Like, he won't go into his own room, period. Won't go into play, won't even go in to go get a toy that he has in there. He will not go in his room. And he's telling his parents around this time the same story over and over and over again.
And he's also telling us in vivid detail the same story every single night, that he is seeing something crawl out of his closet and stand by his window, which is right next to his bed, and it's staring at him like this. And he says it's trying to eat him.
Yeah, when she made that face, it just left me with such a sense of unease, because I can only imagine, like, her doing it was scary, but imagine a child doing that, and her son specifically saying, oh my god, it gives me chills, I'm seeing this thing crawl out of my closet and stand next to my bed every single night looking like that. Anyway, this goes on for months and months and months and months. A couple of things happen around this time. Kayla has some leftover holy water from her son's baptism, and so she uses it around his room. She creates like a barrier around his bed, and surprisingly, he actually does get better sleep. However, her youngest son, who is just a little baby, starts waking up in the night screaming as if absolutely terrified by something. When Kayla wants to take her older son to preschool, he doesn't want to go to school. And this is weird because normally he really enjoys school. He gets excited about it. And he says, I'm not going to school unless you promise me you will stay with my baby brother all day. You cannot leave him alone. And his mom, Kayla, is just like, yeah, of course, like, he's a baby, he's not going to be alone. But there was such conviction seemingly in her son's voice that she promises him, like, of course, I'm not going to leave your baby brother alone. And that's the only way that her son, her older son, will go to preschool. They contact a priest who specifically tells them that yes, dark entities can attach themselves to objects. Specifically, Kayla tells him about the doll and ends up giving him the doll to like dispose of properly. Now, this is where things get strange.
We end up contacting a priest, and he's telling us that sometimes dark spirits or evil things can attach themselves to objects. He's asking us, if we brought anything new into the house. I mentioned the doll. I mentioned that, people in my family have said creepy things have happened where this doll is surrounded, but I mean, I don't really know, So he does recommend me giving him the doll so that he can dispose of it properly. So we make arrangements to do that. Then he asked me if Lawson is calling this thing by any specific name. And I'm like, he is actually. He calls this thing Bow. And he goes, well, there is actually a demon. And I don't want to say his name because he told me that, names hold power. But there is a powerful demon, and his name is Baal. And he has like a thing for firstborn male children, all of this stuff. And it creeped me out so bad. We get rid of the doll. We pass the doll off to the priest. He gives us some very specific instructions on very specific things to say and do around our house. He has us open a Bible to a very specific passage and then place this open Bible in the closet and leave it there. And eventually things do calm down. He starts sleeping a little better at night. He's not talking about it every day. But even still to this day, if things have gotten better, he doesn't mention it. But he still won't sleep in that room without somebody with him. He's nearly 7. He's just turned 7 at this point and wants somebody still to sleep in bed with him and help him fall asleep. And if you even mention the name Bow or Baal, he freaks out.
Now, that's weird. That's really, really, really weird that her son is calling it by this name that he's almost definitely never heard before. And it sounds really similar to this like demonic name, specifically that the priest is talking about. But it gets even weirder because Kayla had taken a photo of her husband and their son on their baby monitor, just while her husband was in the room with him, trying to like settle him after one of his many nightmares. And she didn't notice it until after the fact. But in the photo, you could see almost what looked like the shadow of a hand or like a claw holding onto her husband's shoulder as he holds on to her son's hand. In looking at the photo, man, I thought the first time I saw it, it was him with his own arm wrapped around himself, but it's not. It looks like there is a hand on his shoulder, clear as day. And I know it's grainy, maybe it could be something else, but this story as a whole, y'all know what I say it every single time I make a video like this. Kids know. They just know. They know when something paranormal is happening and they know when it's not good. And I think that the fact that this thing like started off with her oldest son was being really weird to him, and then like literally the night that she puts holy water around her older son's bed, her youngest son starts being tormented in his sleep by something. And I think that her youngest would have been like too old to describe anything at that time, but I don't know. That's just very, very, very strange timing. Believe kids and believe pets when they see something spooky, man. They know better than we do. Then we have a TikTok from the user thegoldenmirrors. This one is like a little spiritual, a little witchy, right up my alley, so hopefully it's up yours. Also, in looking at this video of this poster, she and I have like the same haircut. Right now this is a wig, but underneath this I have the cutest little pixie. Anyway, this poster, her name is Meg. One weekend her friend is having a bachelorette party at a literal cabin in the woods, and the minute she said that I was like, oh, this is not gonna be good. So Meg is on her way to this bachelorette party when suddenly she gets this overwhelming feeling that she needs to turn around, go back to her house and go pick up cleansing tools. Think like tools to cleanse a space spiritually. She walks in the door, her husband's like, did you not just leave? She's like, had to go to the bathroom, didn't feel like using a gas station. She's lying. She doesn't want him to know that she got this weird feeling of like something might need like a little bit of spiritual protection at this cabin. She says it was a pretty pleasant drive, just a handful of hours, but specifically when you are on your way to this house, there's like a little bit under an hour's worth of just plain forest. Nothing but forest as far as the eye can see. And Meg pulls up to the house and immediately she just has this dark, sinking feeling in her gut. She walks in, her friends see her and they're like, hey. She's like, hey. And it kind of just seems like everybody knows that something feels a little bit off here.
As soon as I pull up into the garage, I immediately just have this overwhelmingly heavy feeling that I really can't explain. 2 other people had arrived. They were there taking care of a lot of the organizational details. And I walked in and my 2 friends are standing in the kitchen here and here. These are pictures of the property. And I walk in and automatically, just with my sensitivities, I am like, there is something up there that is funky and I don't like it and I don't want to go near it. I feel like I am being stared at and it is highly dark, highly uncomfortable. And so my 2 friends in the kitchen are like, hey Meg, how's it going? We're glad you're here. I'm like, yeah, how are you guys doing? They're like, we're great. And I'm like, yeah, other than the thing that's up those stairs that's been staring at you the whole time. And they were like, oh my God, we were waiting for you to get here because we just had such a weird feeling and we're freaked out and we wanted to know what you thought because they know I've got like sensitivities or whatever. I walked up the stairs and I got to about this spot right here and I stopped because I literally felt like an energetic wall, like do not go any further. My friend said, that's really weird. That's literally as far as we went to before you got here. And we were, they were just checking out the house and they went up into that weird little loft attic area and they were like, nope, no further. This is the top of the stairs right here. And if you look way down in this loft area, there's a little door with a crawl space and it was shut when we got there. As people started arriving, we were having fun joking, and one of the women went up there and we were talking about how creepy it was, and she said, was the door open when you guys went up there? The crawl space door had been opened and none of us had been up there.
Now, this is weird. There's a bunch of weird things going on, but primarily it seems like, just to be frank, the vibes were very off in this home. So much so that it's the middle of the night and Meg is like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I feel like I need to get in my car and go home. But something was telling her, you have to stay here and maintain a spiritual barrier. So she goes to sleep and she has the weirdest dream.
I had a dream when I eventually fell asleep that the entire property was surrounded by fire and the fire couldn't penetrate this weird line that we were all trying to hold. So I was like, fine, okay, I guess I will stay in this freaky ass house. The next morning, we're all hanging out on the balcony and talking, having breakfast, having coffee, and people start to share their experiences. People were touched. People staying in the upstairs bedroom in the bunk beds had water dripped onto their faces, coming out of nowhere, and there were no leaks in the ceiling. It wasn't raining that weekend. Later that day, when most of the crew was playing yard games, like down here in the grass, one of the women was hanging out over here, and there was a deck of cards that literally got blown, and the cards were like flung into her face. I have no idea how that happened.
This is so weird. This entire experience is so strange. Meg is like, I don't feel right about this. I have this overwhelming feeling that I need to leave. She literally decides to go to the gas station, and I'm assuming that that's pretty far away since it's such a long stretch of woods before you even get to this little cabin in the woods. She goes to a gas station. She's like, am I just feeling like this because something's in the air? Is it me? The minute she's out of the house, the minute she's like away from it, she feels fine. People in the house are being affected like their moods were just off. Like nobody was quite themselves. But something I thought was really interesting is that Meg said that what she was picking up on in like the attic area, the loft area, was not human and had never been human.
What I was picking up on primarily that kind of like lived in that upstairs loft area was something that was not nor had ever been human. This sounds really crazy because I've had run-ins with some really, really dark, start with a D word kind of entities. This wasn't even that. It almost felt like not from here, if you catch my drift. But it was, what I saw in my mind's eye was almost like a spidery looking thing. And it's interesting because another woman who was there told me that they saw a spidery looking image of this big nasty thing like crawl from up in this main area down the stairs into the loft area where we were sleeping.
When she said like not from here, I don't really know what that's implying, I guess, but it just made me feel so uncomfortable. I don't know why, but like the minute she said that, I just got full body chills. Anyway, the safe rooms in this house will change throughout the day. As time passes, like certain rooms that would be calm are just like no longer safe areas in the house. The activity will be there as well. Nobody wants to sleep. There are people, including Meg, staying up in this house until 4 in the morning just talking to each other because they don't want to sleep. Some of the other people on this trip also say that they were picking up on the energy of an older man, which Meg says that wasn't really what she was getting. Anyway, they've been keeping all of this away from the bride. The bride isn't having any activity happen to her, which is a good thing during her own bachelorette party. However, as they're all sitting at breakfast one day, just kind of like talking about their experiences so far, something happens that quite literally makes them get up and leave in the middle of their meal.
By the last morning, I'll never forget, one of my friends had set up a beautiful create your own crepe kind of buffet line. And we were all sitting down around at breakfast, trying to eat and just feeling so uncomfortable, ready to get the heck out of there. Someone said, "So you picking up on anything, Megan?" And it's interesting because at that moment, I felt just this overwhelming cloud, almost like darkness from every angle just starting to swoop in. And I said, I think it's time to go. The way everybody collectively pushed back from this table and popped up and got up and grabbed their stuff and started hauling ass out of there, it was like a scene in a movie. Other guests had weird experiences. I checked the book, paused to read.
Now, there are like some logbook entries as well that Meg shows here. This one reads, these people stayed here in 2019. There were only 6 of us and it was a little creepy, but we had the best dance party in snow fell and we wouldn't have it any other way. But here's a weird one. This one happened in what looked like 2020, if I'm reading that correctly. From this person, at around 1:45 a.m., a small clicking noise was briefly heard by one of our guests. It was shrugged off as some vermin crossing through the beams. The clicking continued through the night and into the early morning hours until an apparition appeared in the form of a former country western star, George the Possum No-Show Jones. We all gasped in amazement as he began to tell a story about former inhabitants of the dwelling. And just as we were expecting a finale to the story, he shifted into an entire family of squirrels, said farewell, and scampered through the wall, leaving behind a tiny pile of ashes. We heard a faint voice following saying, "I love you more than," it looks like more than you know, but it's like covered up by the writing here. And also Meg says that she's pretty sure this was just exaggerated. This probably was not an apparition of a country star. Anyway, so they get out of the house. And the bride's husband-to-be and all of his friends were actually also having their stag party just down the road, like in the same area. They had heard little whispers and rumors of what was going on in the house. They decide they're gonna come and check it out. They're gonna kick this ghost's butt and they're going to make sure that all of the girls are happy and okay and safe. Like, just stay, eat your breakfast, whatever. And Meg tells them no. Nobody is going in there.
The husband-to-be was actually having his stag party down the road, and they came over because they heard whispers and rumors about what was happening to us that weekend, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna run in and we're gonna take care of it." When they saw the look on our faces and they heard me say absolutely nobody's going into that house, they decided not to go in. I got in my car and was completely silent and white-knuckled my grip on the steering wheel until the tree line broke about an hour later and I was getting closer to home. I burst into tears and started sobbing because up until that point, I had never faced anything that dark or malevolent in my life. A few of us called each other after to process what had happened. It was wild.
Yeah, it sounds like Meg specifically is a very like intuitive person. I mean, she said that herself. She's very, very sensitive to spirit, but like it seems like she might have had a better understanding or grasp on whatever this thing was. It seems like it was affecting people very differently, but all around quite negatively. But it's so curious why the bride wasn't feeling anything. Meg did say she was like a very spiritually protected person, the bride. So maybe that was it. I'm glad that she didn't have anything scary happen to her. But I'm so curious about this location. It's not safe to like put out where it is, but I'm also just like, where is this place? I don't think I would go. I don't think like with this explanation, this is not like, oh, a door slammed in the night. Oh, some lights turned on by themselves. Like this is terrifying, but I'm still just like, where is it? Where is it? Don't tell me, but where is it? Finally, we have a TikTok from this user. I don't know how to say their name. Is it thatweirddlgirl? Is it thatweirddlgirl? I don't know. I'm gonna be referring to them as our poster. This is the finale of this video for a reason. Y'all know I make these videos really frequently. I have to watch a lot of TikToks. I watch a lot of videos. And usually it's like a couple of times that I pass through them. I watch them way more in editing than I do on my initial pass-throughs. This video, I watched on repeat for no less than an hour. I'm not kidding you. I sat there with my jaw wide open listening to this again and again and again. There is just something about this story. This takes place about 21 years ago when the poster and the father of her children were still together. Now, the father of her kids has this house that has been passed down in his family for generations and generations and generations. It's this really beautiful home, 2 stories, tons of acreage. And the family says, hey, you guys are just starting out. You're a new, fresh, young family. Number one, 21 years ago, how? This person looks 21. Anyways, they give them a reduced rate on this house. They say you can move in, you can live here while you get on your feet. And also it comes with a little bit of furniture. They're moving in and it's partially furnished. The poster said nothing crazy had happened until this point. Like maybe a couple of things that could always be blamed on something else, but nothing crazy happened. But I want you to hear this part. Like, cause this part was what really sold me. This is why I listened to this TikTok on repeat for an hour.
New Year's night was a culmination of I have no idea, but when I tell you me and the father of my children can't even agree on like what color the sky is half the time, I could call that man right now and he will tell you that this is gospel spoken in a pulpit. Do you understand? That's where we're at.
That just sold me. I was listening, don't get me wrong. I usually will listen to these kinds of stories and like clean my room or something or do my makeup. I heard her say that and I was sad. I was at attention. I was ready for class. So it's New Year's Eve and this poster and her husband, they're kind of in a small town in Virginia, and for New Year's, all they're gonna do is just go down to a neighbor's house and go to like what seems like a little party. They get a babysitter, they go out to this party, and this is where this all begins.
So, went down there, hang out, ate, did all the things. It's after midnight. What do you do in rural Virginia? Nothing. There's nothing to do. We were like, let's just take a loop around the bend. We go past the house, just look, everything's quiet, calm, and collected. We do our loop around the bend. Takes us about 15 minutes, if that. As we're approaching the house, what cuts through the dark is our upstairs light. And we're like, what the hell? We know Grandma is not going to be in our home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning unless it's an emergency or someone's in my house. So we get to the house, we pull in the driveway. Every single light is on in my home. And there is a music emitting from my house that I didn't know my house could make music this loud. Continue. So I send him in. We notice right off the bat, we don't see any windows open, and we have to use our keys to get in. Neither the back nor the front door were unlocked or open. So we had to use the lock. He comes in and gives me a little cordless phone, you know, because back then didn't have cell phone. If they did, I was broke. We didn't have one. So I'm saying from a cordless phone. I watched him go through the rooms cutting stuff off. The music is still going, and I'm just sitting out here like, oh no.
And every single light is on, and music is playing. Unfamiliar music. All the doors are still locked. Nobody would have done this.
And next thing you know, I hear this man holler at me in a way that is not like, it's terror and fear. It's something I still to this day have never heard him be this way. But he was, please get in here. Please get in here now. You have to see this. And it was such urgency and fear. I'll just go. And with everything in me telling not to, I just go because I hear it in his voice. And when I walk into my room, there was a piece of furniture that I presumed was like this beautiful tabletop that she had left a pretty lamp on. And she said we could use it. And so I had some books up there and knickknacks. It was this cute little thing that I used in the bedroom. Everything was cleared off of this and stacked extremely neat in a corner. This tabletop piece is now in the middle of our room that flips up. He did know that this did this. I didn't. And revealed a record player and a radio that is blasting music me or him nor would never listen to. And the part of this that is the most chilling, if you haven't got there, is the cord. The cord to this piece was stretched so tight into an electrical socket you could almost flick the cord. And me and him are just in silence, stunned.
By the way, if you're wondering about the babysitter, I was wrong in the beginning. They did not leave the kids at home with a babysitter. The children's grandmother lived on this property, right across the street. So all that happened was they took their child and they took them over to grandma's. So nobody was there. If you're wondering, okay, well, if the kids were home with a babysitter, how did that happen? So anyways, this happens. But the night is not over yet.
So we unplug it, we get everything back in the room, and it's just this eerie silence. And if that wasn't enough, we just kind of in unison sit on the bed, and the next thing you know, as it stills, the bed just does this very... That was it. I slept in the truck, moved out the next day, and I can't say this enough. We don't agree on anything but this story.
I think that getting the hell out of Dodge when you have little kids like that is the smartest thing you can do. I think it's crazy that seemingly nothing happened until then. I mean, nothing worth noting anyways. Nothing that was big enough to say, okay, I think there's something going on in this house. That's just crazy to me. Just nothing. And then one night, it comes alive like Monster House. I don't know. But again, this was the finale for this video, which means that was 6 scary paranormal TikTok stories that I wanted to share with all of you. I'm gonna have all of these creators listed and linked down below. Please check out their accounts. So many of them have more than just the paranormal stories I showed you today, and they're all really phenomenal storytellers. So I really enjoyed making this video for you. Maybe there will be a part 3 to this at this rate. I really don't know. It seems like the Audacity trend is here to stay, and I am not complaining. Anyways, you guys, I really do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. A special thank you to my subscribers who are members of the channel. If you want to join the channel memberships and get extra members exclusive perks like members only videos, polls to help me decide on future video topics, members only updates and diary entries, and so much more, you can click that little join button somewhere around the screen. We would love to have you. An extra special thank you to my VIP loves for their continued and generous support of the channel. I love and appreciate you all very, very much. I love you all very much, and I will see you in my next video. Stay spooky, friends. Bye.